In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can track your daily chores in Home Assistant with Grocy and some NFC tags. In the video, we'll be installing Grocy, we'll be creating a couple of sensors, we'll be tracking some chores with automations, and we'll be pairing some NFC tags. This is Gio from Smart Home Makers. Let's roll the intro. Grocy is an add-on that we can add to the supervised version of Home Assistant. So we go into Supervisor, go to the add-on store and search for Grocy. There's the ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning tool. Just click that. It sounds like a mouthful, but it does a lot of cool things, which I'm looking forward to explore. As you can see here, I've already installed it, but you'll have an install button instead of stop, and you get that installed. And I would also configure show in sidebar, so you have it on your left-hand side. You can actually also access Grocy through the IP address and the port without going through Home Assistant. That's not necessary. Documentation, there's a lot of options in here, things that you can tweak. One thing that I did tweak in the configuration tab, I tweaked the host to 9192, but you can, and also have changed the SSL to false. I think it was set as true. Check your logs to see if it's all started up and if it's all working fine, and we're ready to go to start adding some chores in Grocy. Grocy is a very powerful platform which can allow you to do a lot of things, but today we're only going to look at chores, but it can also track things like groceries and tasks, batteries, and other sort of equipment. Now we're going to add some chores in. So go to your Manage Master Data, go to Chores, and you'll see a button right here on the left hand side. So click Add. We need to give the chore a description, so our one can be, we need to give our chore a name. So in my example, I'm going to give it Clean Kitchen. You can give it a description if you want, and we need to pick a period type. So as you can see here, you can either pick daily, weekly, monthly, or dynamic. So I'm just going to create a weekly catch-all clean kitchen routine. You can select the desired date that you actually want to trigger this. So maybe perhaps we can pick Saturday, and we can pick the intervals of weeks. So if we're going to be skipping weeks, for example, if we're doing things fortnightly. You can assign particular tasks to users if you want to, but I'm not doing that in this feature. If you're not interested in actually tracking the time of when things happen, you can tick this checkbox and you can track the date only, but I'm going to leave it unticked. Click Save. Now if you go back to the chores overview, you should be able to see it now, Clean Kitchen. Now what I would recommend is, first thing to do is to actually track it. In that way, we have a starting point, so we know that we gotta assume that the kitchen starts clean. If it isn't, you can just go and thoroughly clean it, and we can sort that one out. To track an execution from Grocy itself, you can click the green button and you will see it tracked now here. Last tracked, you've actually got the timestamp of when it was tracked. If you've made this by mistake, you can go into the journaling. So go on the three dots. You can journal for this chore, and inside here you can click the undo button to undo the execution. Grocy has a REST API exposed that we can actually use and leverage to make automation calls, but also to create sensors. To get familiar with the REST API, you can always use your terminal command and type this out beforehand. I'm going to show you a quick brief guide of the actual documentation itself. The parts that we're going to be using today, if you scroll down, you'll find chores. Now in the chores tab, you've got various, you've got 2 gets and 3 posts. To get are really to get information, so to read statuses and to use them maybe perhaps for sensors, and the actual posts are going to be used to actually track the chores themselves. So as you can see, the dash chore will give you return all of the chores. The chore dash chore ID will actually give you a specific chore that you picked. In my example, I have 4 or 5 chores. The execute will be the one that will actually allow you to track things. So it's the equivalent of clicking the green button that I showed you before. The undo is the same thing, but it undoes the execution. And the calculate next assignments is more for if you're using users, if you have like some sort of management of who's doing what in the house. But I'm not using this in this tutorial. If you click on the documentation, you're able to actually have a really good example here. It actually uses the application JSON control type, and we've got the all the headers that we are returned in the JSON file, and you can see the format. So you can always use that to your advantage. And this is going to be quite helpful when we create the code. But as usual, the code, you'll find it in my blog at leonardosmarthomemaker.com/blogs. But it's also good to understand how it works so that you can create your own one going forward. So we need to create an API key. So that's the way we authenticate to the REST API. Click on the settings button and go to manage API keys. Now I'm not going to go in there because it's my own API key. But what you need to do is go in the manage API key, just click add new API. You'll have that string you'll see, and just get the string and then copy and paste it, maybe perhaps on your notepad. Now it's time to actually get that chore into Home Assistant as a sensor and add it to our dashboard. First thing we need to do is we need to go to the secrets file and add that API key in here. So what you need to do is you need to give it a name. So for example, Grocy_API in my example. And at this point you would just paste your code and that's it. And you would save that and you are ready to go. So reset this. And now it's time to go into our sensors file. The first thing I've done is to actually separate my sensors. To do that, I've created this line here, line number 22. I've included the directory sensor. So what you can do is you can create a directory sensor, and then in there you can put files like all of your sensors. So I've got one file for all of my Grocy sensors, and then you can have one file, for example, for your MQTT sensors or other type of sensors that you have. By including this REST here, this actually allows me to keep my existing sensors inside the configuration file. So you don't have to migrate sensors that you already have at the time that you're doing this. But you can call this whatever you want. You can call it REST or Grocy or anything else that you want. So now navigating to sensor. Under sensor, I've got my grocy.yaml file. So create a YAML file. And in the YAML file, we can start adding some code. Now, as you can see, I've already created a couple here, but we're creating one more. But before we actually create it, I'm going to go through what this actually does. So the first one here is the REST. Obviously uses the REST platform, and we need a couple of things. The things that we need to specify is a name. So this is the friendly name that you can use in the dashboard. We need to specify an IP address. This is the IP address of the actual Grocy instance. In my example, because I've used the add-on, it's the same IP address as my Home Assistant IP. We can set a port. We can change the port if you want to in the configurations, but I'm using 9192, and we are using the specific API call. So as you can recall, if you look at the screen, API Chores 1, and that is actual maps this. So I'm using this get, and chore 1 equals the first chore that I created. So the first chore that you create is chore number 1. Now don't show what happens if you delete a chore. You're going to need to go and experiment with that if the actual numbering continues. I hope it does, because I will mess it up. I haven't found a really good way of finding which one is your chore. Let me know in the comments down below if you actually know. So the method is a get method as specified by the documentation, because we are reading information, we're storing them as a sensor. I'm going to leave the value template for now because it's going to be a little bit more complex. The JSON attributes that we're tracking the last tracked, and we're tracking the estimated execution time. These are standard values that you can see from the JSON file. So if we look at the example here, the next estimated execution time is the next time the chore needs to be done, needs to be completed. So if you have a daily chore, that will be every day. If you have a weekly chore and it only runs on Saturday, it will be next Saturday or next month. So that's your reminder. So you can calculate how many days are left. Obviously you could do how many days are left from the estimated execution and today, so you'll know you are due to do that activity, for example, clean the kitchen in 6 days. But the thing is, if you want to actually know, but how long was it since the last time I've done it, regardless of what day is it today, then you would use your last tracked. So your last tracked attribute here actually gives you the last time you've tracked it, right? So you can track it with Grocy, or you can track it with an NFC tag close to the the position where you are, and you can scan it with your phone. The headers, this is sort of standard application JSON. The Grocy API key is what we are using to pass the secret, which I've added, called Grocy_API. And the units of measurement is days. So this sensors will measure days. Now the value template is going to fill in the state. And in here, it seems complex, but it's not. What it's doing is it's doing a date difference between the next estimated execution time and the last tracked. What it does, it converts them from a string to a timestamp with as timestamp value. And then it does a subtraction, and then I think that returns seconds, and then that gets converted from seconds into minutes, days, so you can have a full number expressed in days, and then we do a rounding. Now, as you can see from the first one and the second one, there are minimal differences. The only difference that I'm going to highlight is the actual chore ID, which will, in this case, will be 2, and the name will be unsweet cleaning, which will be just a different name on sensor. Right, so let's add in the 5th sensor. So very simply, just highlight everything you've got over here, or you can copy and paste it, for example, for the blog, and you paste it in. So we'll give this a name. We can call this Clean Kitchen. Remember to change the ID to 5, and that's it really. What we'll do now is we'll test it quickly. So we'll save and we'll restart HAS, and then we're going to go into the developer tools and see if it actually picked up or not. So I've been to the developer tools, and good news, it's there, clean_kitchen, and we found it. Just to recap, in the state, we have 7, indicating that it's 7 days. We have a last tracked, which was at a few minutes ago. We have a units of measurement, which is days, and we have a friendly name, which is Clean Kitchen. Now let's add it into the dashboard, and let's see how that looks. So I'm going to add a new card, and I'm using personally this entity. They're just a normal standard entity. There are quite a lot of fancy cards you can use for this, but just for this tutorial, I'm going to use a simple card. In here, we're going to type our sensor that we just created. And if we want to, we can actually change that icon to something else. So we can use NMDI, output fridge. So once that is done, you can save that. And as you can see now, we have this sensor with a few of the other sensors I created. And we have our days here, and we sort of can all see it. So let's see what we can do in terms of tracking. In terms of tracking, what you need is, what I'm using, in this example, I'm using an NFC tag. Now these little devices, I've made a whole video about them. 7 automation ideas with NFC tags. These devices don't require any power. You can place them wherever you want. The only thing you need is an NFC enabled mobile phone to tap on them. These are very also inexpensive. You can buy like a pack of 10 for maybe £5-6 or $6. I'm going to leave a link to a few down in the description below. There are affiliate Amazon links, and if you click on them, you'll support the channel. If you don't know how to write an NFC tag, it's very simple to do. What you'll need to do is you'll need to use the Home Assistant mobile app. You need to go into the, scroll down, go to the app configuration, go to integrations, NFC tags, and then you just need to click on write tag, go random recommended, and then you're going to write this, and then you get to tap it to the tag. And I'm not going to do it now because I've already written this. That's it really. Now let's jump back into Home Assistant and let's rename that tag immediately. So go to configuration and go to tags. Now in here, one of these tags will have a weird name, a bit like this tag. So I never actually renamed this tag, which actually, I don't even know what this tag is now, that to be fair. But what I did create previously was this bathroom cleaning tag, which is this tag over here. And you just click this button right on the right hand side over here, and you see the tag ID, and then you just rename it, put a name in it. That way you know what these tags are. And I will also suggest writing maybe behind the tag, a reminder or an ID or a name or some sort of labeling system. Now in the configuration.yaml, we can actually create the shell command. Now the shell command, I'd recommend you actually copy and paste it exactly as it is. Just change the IP address to your own IP address and your own port. But I'm going to go through what this actually does. This shell command is going to enable us to write automations a bit easier and pass data and pass information to the shell command. The shell command basically is doing a curl post, and then it uses that API guide that I showed you earlier, and it references a chore ID. So you'll need to pass a chore ID as a parameter. So it's either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 in my example. You're going to need a Grocy key. Now the reason because we have it like this and we haven't got it fixed is because I believe we can't actually put the secrets file in this expression. So we either hard coded, so we have the API key exposed, which I guess you don't want to do. But if you want to keep in a secrets file, you can't do it unless you keep the whole string in the secrets file. So what I've decided to do is to actually use this as a parameter and then you reference it in the automations, even if the API key is always the same. And the tracked time is a parameter which is actually optional. So you can decide to track a different time if you want to. I don't know if you could track in the past, but you could track a different time. But if you omit it, it will track the default time, which will be the actual time, the now. The done by is the person that done the task. So if you have an ID of a person, so they can scan the device and potentially they can, assign themselves, but we are not using users and people, so we're just keeping it simple. Once you've created this, the name that you give it, keep note of it. In my example, it's Grocy _track_chore, but save and then restart has, and now we can jump into the automations file and start creating some automations. Now, as you might know, I actually do a similar thing with sensors. So I have automations split out in different files and different folders. So you'll see my path here actually is automations, NFC tags, and then this one's called NFC tag track bathroom cleaning, which is this tag. Okay, so what do? It's very simple. We create an alias called, for example, track bathroom cleaning. We use the trigger is the tag being red. So we've got a specific tag ID of this tag, which you can get from the options tag manager. And the action, this action we are calling the shell command, and the shell command is the one that we created just 1 second ago. And it's called, in my example, Grocy _track_chore, and it will be different for you depending on what you used and what name you call it. But if you're just copying and pasting, it will be the same name. In terms of the data, we need to reference that API key that we stored at the beginning of the video, where we had the API in the secrets file. We need to reference that here with the exclamation mark secret. And then we've got Grocy API. And now we need to use the ID. We're using ID 1 because that is what this bathroom tag is linked to. And once you've done that, go and reload automations, and we're all ready to go to actually test it out. So we're in the Grocy tab here, and I'm actually going to show you, give me a second, I'll show you Home Assistant here. So you see Home Assistant, we've got the bathroom cleaning is due in 6 days time. So I'm not due to clean it, but I'm not actually cleaning it because I'm going to be faking it. And the Grocy tab, we have it obviously set as tracked. We have 6 days from now because it was tracked this morning. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to track it now with my mobile phone, and we can actually see how long it takes for this to update. So I've got my tag here. I'm going to do this real time, and if you can see this, I'm going to try and capture this on camera. So I'm going to scan it. Okay, so I've got the prompt, get a tap on it. Okay, so that went through. So I'm going to refresh the page. I'm going to go to Chores overview. Fantastic, so I can see it was scanned at 21:48. That's pretty much 10-15 seconds ago. So if I go into Home Assistant, we can see bathroom cleaning is still set as 6 days. So we've got our last tracked 2148, so that did update. We have 6 days still left in terms of the days due, and this might be correct. I need to think about this, but I think this is still true. Yes, so I just had to thought about this. If you actually look here, it actually says 6 days from now is when it's due next, because the bathroom is due, let me check, it's due on Friday, yes, not Saturday, so I got confused. So it's all working fine. So what are the next steps then? I think we could create notifications, and we can use these notifications to notify us when we actually are overdue. Now my understanding is overdue will happen when the time has gone past the actual execution time, and then that will turn into a negative value, so you'll be minus days behind. Now at that stage I would use the numeric state to trigger a actual notification on your phone to prompt you. Maybe the next time you walk in that room, you'll get prompted, you know what, you need to take care of that. Again, that could get really annoying for certain people, so be very mindful of how you set these chores so they actually don't get ignored. And the simple thing you'll need to do once you've finished one of these chores, just use one of those tags, tap it, and that's it. You could create switches yourself in Home Assistant to actually update them from the UI. You could use buttons, you could use different things. I'm just using an NFC tag in this video. The logic stands. So if you got value out of the video, then please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I've got another good video for you coming up. 7 automations. I've got another good video coming up for you. I've got 7 automations NFC tags, so you actually find out what you can do with the rest of the pack of NFC tags that you actually bought. See you in the next one, and have a good year. Good 2021. See you guys.